Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another week, and with it, another strength-fulfilled broadcasted race from the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT, the official series available only on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available on PC. That is iRacing. We are back then for another dose of Porsche 992.2 GT3 Cup car racing action, and today, in the 2026 Season 1 calendar campaign, our fourth week of racing has seen us made our way all the way to Brazil for the Interlagos Grand Prix circuit. 9 in full as the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache in reference to local hero. This circuit has been with us for the best part of what has been 85 years. As opened in 1940, it has gradually evolved over its time, but regardless of how it's evolved into its current 2.67 mile layout, the one thing that stayed the same is the ability for the circuit to weave and wind its way through the local hilly terrain of Sao Paulo City, and with it, create a circuit which is absolutely draining on both driver and car alike. And so as our drivers take to the circuit today, it's going to be just as much a test of stamina over the course of approximately 25 minutes racing as it is going to be about their speed. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in right now on YouTube at Porsche Productions. This broadcast being brought to you live each and every week. And in the current TV, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds. Now, as we tune in to our 21:45 Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, strength fulfilled top split race. In terms of our schedule for tonight, there's only one race on the schedule. It's 16 laps in duration, and it's due to get underway in approximately 4 minutes' time at 5 to 10 this evening. So without further ado, let's make our way into the details. Let's bring it up to speed with the situation. And also, we say a quick hello to all you guys and girls tuning in the YouTube chat, including none other there than Camshaft5934, who says, let's go, love me a strength fulfilled race. And I'm with you on that, Camshaft. So let's get into it. So we look to our schedule then. And as we can see, last time out, we were in Germany at none other than the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke, with the majority of the racing occurring over the Nordschleife. And with a low chance of rain, well, there was definitely some moisture on the circuit that carried over from practice into qualifying and the race, but then the rain never quite rematerialised. But what did materialise was an absolutely brilliant battle for the win between George Tyler, Noah Eder, and Said Amir, with Tyler taking the win in the end, and Eder having to hold on to second in a drag race to the finish line versus Said Amir. Will that continue again today? Well, the one thing is, because many of our drivers are regulars all preparing for the 24 Hours of Daytona event on iRacing in a weekend's time, and they're currently competing in the Raw before the 24 as well, we have got a brand new grid of drivers. There's only 2 names that we'll recognise on this grid today, and therefore we're going to see a new winner, or at least new names up towards the very top, as they take part on this 10th of January race at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. Next time we head to Le Mans, and it will be the Circuit des 24 Hours de Mans that plays host, but we'll talk a bit more about that then. And as we come into this week, well, in terms of our top split standings after the first 3 weeks, we can see in Division 1, Oscar Bernson is the man to beat. He is the best part of 42 points ahead of Isaac Phelps, with Heidi Massey not too far behind on 328, only 15 points behind. Igor Kos is in full, the silent but very smart driver at that, ahead of Liam McNeely, and it's Thomas Ronhar, Oliver Pietek, Tobias Olsen, Deegan Fairclough, and Guel Costa, who round off your top 10 in the top split standings. But we won't dwell too much longer on them. Let's talk a little bit more about our host circuit for today. And as we can see, it is the Grand Prix layout of the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. No more commonly as Interlagos in reference to the neighbourhood of Sao Paulo City, the capital city of Brazil, which it sits in. Well, this circuit spanning 2.67 miles or 4.3 kilometres in length consists of 15 turns, and they are steeped to motorsport in history. Where it be Juncal Corner at turn number 12 with the infamous Is That Glock moment, or the Senna S at turns 1 and 2 in reference to the local home hero, who it took him 7 Grand Prix here, I do believe, before he finally won in his home territory. And even then, it was with the absence of several gears in the gearbox, but hopefully we won't see any hardship like that for our drivers today as they sweep their way around this anti-clockwise circuit that goes with the flow and indeed has many a corner that's cambered or off camber, and that's where the technical details may catch out our drivers. And in terms of our rules before we go racing, we can't go racing without them. Setup-wise, this is the open setup version of the Porsche Cup Series, while drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every session, where it be practice, qualifying, or the race. In terms of the race, the grid shall be set via a closed qualifying session, which is currently ongoing and coming to its end, with the race commencing by a standing start as it's a tradition of Porsche Cup racing, and drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they get to 17 instant points. If they get to 25, they will be disqualified, but hopefully we don't see that. And without further ado, what we do want to see is plenty of cars out there, so let's go see them, ladies and gentlemen, as a couple of drivers are coming to the end of this qualifying session right now, and we do have quite a low strength of field today of only 4,189. However, that's to be expected given the fact that many of our big top split stars are practicing for what's the iRacing official events, but that opens up an opportunity to see new blood on the grid, and drivers who wouldn't normally perhaps get the chance to appear in the top split strength of field broadcast, well, they get the chance, and therefore this is the opportunity for the spotlight to be shone on them, and we always love to see familiar faces. And well, Jakob Olsen is one of them. We also do have Agent Korinowski, who's here once again in the number 22 machine as he's parked up, but it's Olsen right now who is the final driver to try and put his final qualifying lap together, and he's not too far away from it here as he makes his way up the hill out of Tsungsao corner, and as he roars his way all the way towards the finish line. Well, he's currently in 18th place. Will he be able to move up? We will see very shortly, but as he heads to the round, well, there's no need for the tyre data today because it is dry conditions. We're not expecting any rain, but we'll very quickly show you the details of our driver's licenses there to give you an idea who are the best drivers out there, and it's Nikolai Melder in particular, your second place starter, as Olsen jumps up to fourth there. Well done to him for that last gasp jump all the way onto the second row of the grid. That's going to be one of the stories of the day, as we do see Korinowski still parked up there on the run into what will be the Retro-Aposta straight, and we also look to Jan-Marcel Dietrich here. But the point being, we do have an eclectic mix of ratings here, ranging all the way from our highest of Melder at 7,000 or so to the nearest 100, all the way down to what will be our 25 car, and that is none other than being piloted by Lucas Tepak, who is on an rating of approximately what is 3,300. So a good variety of drivers here. Golden opportunity for many to try to improve their ratings, but is that the way it's going to go? We will have to see, but we're not too far away from going racing, ladies and gents. We're only 30 seconds left on the clock, and we'll leave you the pictures here of Dietrich taking his round around. And we do have two drivers who've not set laps, one of which is Jerome Charvet, who has qualified with 2 laps, but they were both invalid, and Philip Gray, who has not taken to the circuit and is going to be starting at the very back of the field in the number 20. But the time is almost complete in this session, and as we do say hello there to Unicorn with Sprinkles, it says, we're drawn too late for my own session to watch this strength field race, so this better be good, and well, fingers crossed there, but glad to have you with us at Unicorn. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head to the grid, and we also say hello there to Nick DeBeck. Good evening to you, Nick, and thank you to you for those wonderful graphics you put together for us. We always appreciate them. But as our drivers make their way to the grid, this is how they line up then for the Week 4 Strength of Field race in the 2026 Season 1 campaign of the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. It is Oscar Bernson who takes pole position for Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Nikolai Melder. It'll be the battle of the Nordic drivers into turn 1. The IA SimSport driver then be followed up by Sandro Chialetti, ahead of none other than Jakob Olsen, who qualified 4th right at the death. And then it's going to be Joel McQuard, who starts 5th, ahead of Johnny Sundell. And then we do have starting 7th Amel Kenozanovic, ahead of none other than Tom Nordstrom. Jack Humble and Harrison Scott complete your top 10, and behind the two Britons, where it's going to be in 11th place there for the Finnish driver of Nicholas Vestman. Then we have Justin Hodge starting in 12th, ahead of Aaron Jones and Timothy Grossman. And then it will be an all-German row number 8 with Lucas Tepak and Igor Grenzel on that row. And behind the ring physio sim racing driver, it will then be Yannick Hilber and Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations. Good to see him on the grid. We then have Oscar Alvarez and Ivan Rybachenkov. They round off your top 20. And behind the American driver, there's 3 more rows to go. The first of which is occupied by Jan-Marcel Dietrich and also that Adrian Korinzowski. And then we do have Thomas Cordon and Jerome Charvet. And last but not least, starting in 25th place, it's going to be the Briton there, Philip Grace, with no lap set, much like Charvet. However, Charvet did put some laps in the session, and that's why he starts ahead. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is almost set. All drivers are in position, and in fact, we await the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And drop the hammer, here we go, it's lights out, and away our drivers roar down towards turn number 1. 16 laps gets underway very quickly here, and Oscar Bernson gets a decent start, but Nikolai Melder's right out the inside immediately. Full tilt there from the RAA driver, and everyone else makes the way through. But we look to the blimp camera there, and you can see all the field segueing their way into the centre S's. Everyone safely on through the opening couple of quarters. Everyone being quite polite here as the race gets underway, but Nikolai Melder has taken the lead of this race as they now roar their way down the Retro-Aposta straight. We're coming a little bit closer to drivers here as they get ready to go onto the brakes. You can see Bernson going defensive versus Cialetti already. Cialetti looking around the outside, and also meanwhile just playing patient there and putting a little bit of mental pressure on. Driver ran a little bit wide there. I believe that might have been a small trip for Jack Humble, but he's kept it just about on the road as they all head onwards. We've had a bit of drama further back. I believe there's a car off in the distance. That's Harrison Scott and Jan-Marcel Dietrich had a bit of coming together. We'll get a replay of that when we can. As meanwhile, this is almost 3 wide here coming through turns 6 and 7. That is going to be Simon Bamber trying to cause a queue there with Jerome Charvet and Cordon. Oh, goodness me, and in. Chavez gone sideways there. I suspect he might have been tapped on his adventure, but more on that shortly. But as we come back to the very front of the field, we can see Melder right now after what was a lightning quick start. Well, now it's one of those situations whereby Oscar Bernsson's having to provide a bit of rear guarding action here to try and make sure that the top two don't get swamped. They're not teammates, but understandably, I think they'd ideally just like to make it a story about them today if they can help it, but it's much easier said than done. Coming out of Jinsale corner, meanwhile, Tom Nordstrom in the very colourful red and blue machine right now has Nicholas Vestman right behind him. In fact, no, that is Jack Humble we're looking at there with the coloration, and Nordstrom is the ice-cold racing car by Maxim racing car that's pursuing. As they make the way down onto the start-finish straight, it's line astern as they all come into turn number one for the second time asking, and Nikolai Melder is your leader ahead of Bernson, followed by Cialetti. Then we have Olsen in fourth ahead of Sundell. Then it's Kekanovic in what is sixth place, Emil Kekanovic ahead of Joel Marquardt, and then we do have Jack Humble, Tom Nordstrom and Nicholas Vestman completing that top 10 with best rest driver Justin Hodge in 11th place. But look at the queue that's building, the split of the field starting to emerge, and immediately Nordstrom says, right, I'm not having any of this. He's going to try and outbrake Humble in towards turn number 4. That's not going to be easy there, and Humble on the outside line, he can carry all the speed. Further back, we saw a swap of places, and was a bit of fighting there. Igor Genzel ahead of Yannick Hilber, so that's moved Genzel up into 15th place, and then we see Oscar Alvarez watching on behind. But as all these drivers continue to make the way on through, the tyres are now almost up to temperature here, and understandably, I think we'll start to see the fighting really build. Everyone's been quite sensitive at the start of this race, but I suspect it's just simply because everyone knows this circuit very well and knows just how much you can push it right at the start versus where you have to back off. Whereas lap number 2, they'll now start to feel a bit more confident in themselves. And of course, everyone's still learning this new Porsche Cup car with the introduction of the ABS and traction control systems. And whilst many may have looked at it at first and thought, well, that's not right, we're adding electronics to the car, they've actually found over time that it's completely changed the nature of the beast, and having those electronics isn't always an easy thing to adapt to. But as they all come through, it is still very much nose to tail for so many drivers. Unfortunately, we have lost 3 drivers in this race. Philip Grace did not start the race, unfortunately, from 25th, and we've also lost both Harrison Scott and Jan-Marcel Dietrich due to an open lap incident. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, we see a bit of a too-wide moment here, as that is going to be Nicholas Vestman looking up the inside of Nordstrom. Can't quite find his way in, and we jump on board here as he bounces his way down through the centre edge. And right now, Vestman thinking about where he can go for the move on Nordstrom, but Nordstrom just outpacing in those braking zones. As Vestman right now, you can feel the energy from there running out wide, coming through turn number 3. He wants this place. He knows he's got the pace to go for it, but the problem is Nordstrom is just matching him every step of the way so far. And Vestman right now, what he's doing, he's starting to push himself more and more, and this is a dangerous space early on in the race because the fact he wants to get ahead, but of course what he's having to do is now overdrive a little bit and using all the road plus a bit more. We call it value-added tarmac up to a point, but there's also the fault of running wide and potentially picking up some off tracks along the way. But we'll see whether that's going to be the way it happens as he stays behind. From there, we look a little bit further up the order, in fact down it in terms of the running positions, and we see Simon Bamber here all tucked in behind Oscar Alvarez. Alvarez making sure to keep him equal right now as the Spaniard keeps ahead of the Briton. And then we see Thomas Cordon just behind him and Ivan Rybachenkov, who hasn't really made any progress in this race. He started 20th and that's where he currently is. But as they continue to progress their way around, we take a trip back in time and look at what happened to Harrison Scott. So this was battling down in towards turn number 4. Bamber there going for a bit of a dive, and Scott made his way out of the corner, went wide, car bounced loose, hit the barrier, and sadly that collected Jan-Marcel Dietrich, and Dietrich had nowhere to go. This was the onboard from Dietrich when he made his way into the corner. On the outside, they're already fighting with the number 15, and as he made his way out to speed, he's going to see the car in front of him get it wrong. He picked the wrong side to go for, but in the end, I don't think anybody could have reacted to that, and it was into the barrier for Dietrich, just like that. But coming back to your live racing, and we come back in good time because your lead pack is getting closer and closer here as we look back from the rear of race leader Nikolai Melder. Now, of course, a very decorated driver, last year's Danish F4 Esports champion, indeed one of the major contenders throughout all of that season, amongst others. As he makes his way up the hill, right now, the number 1 driver here definitely trying to hold on. And the last time he appeared in one of these strength of field races was back in the 2025 Season 4 campaign. And there, despite it being his debut, he showed no hesitation with fighting with the very best and had an absolute ball of a time. And he's back here once again, looking to try and show everybody what he can do. Coming on through and up towards what will be turn number 10. Well, right now, the number 1 driver here holding on, but Bernson and Cialetti keeping him very much in their sight. And indeed, that long train of cars right now waiting for somebody to get it wrong. And something tells me Sandro Cialetti is seeing an opportunity on Burnson because he is getting abnormally close coming through the middle sector. But that might be a sign of setup on the car here. Indeed, some of our drivers have brought their own setups to the story. Others have gone to setup shops, and some have taken setup shop setups and then changed them around for their personal setting. But it's interesting to see how Cialetti is stronger in the dirty air in the middle sector compared to Burnson and Melder, who are quicker in what is the opening and also the final sector, where it's more about straight line speed. So it's a differences in setup there that could make a bit of a difference later on as we look a bit further back to Joel Marquardt, who right now chasing after Kekanovic. And well, he's at the back end of this lead pack of 7 cars, and Jack Humble would like to get there if he can, but I think it's going to be much easier said than done. Looking back to Ivan Rybachenkov here as he fights with Oscar, well, not Oscar Alvarez. In fact, yes, it was Oscar Alvarez. Had a big slide loose there coming down for the center edge. He's lost out, and here comes Yannick Hilber looking around the outside as it's 2 by 2 there. Cordone and Alvarez in the foreground very shortly, and as they make the way off into the distance, it's coming on down here. It's not a formation up, I promise you that, as that's going to be Cordone at the inside of Alvarez, and Rybachenkov there. Well, he's going to try and make sure that Hilber does not get on through. Hilber looking to the other way round, and they'll go for the switchback there. We've also got a battle going on further up the field. We'll get back to that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But as Hilber makes his way around the outside there, Rybachenkov right now defending 2 wide as they come through 6 and 7. And in the end, well, I think Rybachenkov will have this one just about, as it's going to be Hilber battling him every step of the way, but he will have to back off. Meanwhile, coming back to your leaders, what's changed? Well, Sandro Cialetti has moved up into second, Jakob Olsen's up into third, and Oscar Burnson has been relegated downwards. And, well, in terms of how that all played out, here is a quick replay to explain. This happened only moments ago whilst we're focused on the battle further down. It was a run out of the Retroposta, and it was Burnson going wide there, and as a result sliding loose. We'll see Cialetti immediately had the overspeed here to take this place, and you'll see Olsen behind him now on the right side of your picture in the number 5, goes all in on the brakes. That was really do or die braking there for our number 5 driver. I think if he'd gone any later than that, he would have tapped the rear of Cialetti and sent all 3 drivers around to the runoff area, but it didn't quite work out for him. So then what happened afterwards? We stayed transfixed for this replay, and Burnson went deep there at turn 6, and it opened up the door for Olsen in towards turn number 8. Well, he saw the opportunity, he wasn't going to waste it, and he went all in immediately, but it was 2 wide down for Pinheiro Corda. Burnson was not going to back off through that, and we could see behind Johnny Sundell just queuing up into the group, but in the end it was Olsen, after fighting through the best part of 5 quarters, that finally got it done come the exit of turn number 10. And with that, we come back to your live racing, and in good time as well, because the difficulties for Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Racing are not stopping right now. Johnny Sundell has Amel Kekanovic right behind him, and Joel Marquardt is also there. And right now, the all-black machines of the 24 and the 13, they would love to take on the Ice Cold machines and put them under a little bit of pressure in terms of temperature. But it does seem as though right now that Sundell is keeping himself nice and cool here. And indeed, he is as cool as a cucumber under pressure, it would seem, as he roars his way down in towards turn number 12. But as they come towards the end of this lap, we are already coming towards the end of lap number 6. These laps are going very quickly, and just like that, they'll be at the halfway point in a couple of laps' time. There's also been a bit of fighting further down the order, and indeed Simon Bamber's had a bit of a difficult moment. I believe he's dropped all the way back to 15th place after an off-track, and well, he's now lost Lucas Tapak, who is further up the road, and Igor Genzel is trying to get closer. Well, speaking of getting close here, this is Thomas Cordon and also Oscar Alvarez fighting again. Alvarez coming from behind here and looking around the outside at 15 in the blue and yellow machine on the left of your picture. Meanwhile, Cordon defending on the inside on the right of your picture in the number 10. And Cordon here is going to try and extend that braking zone as much as possible. He does so. Does he overextend it? Yes, he does. Alvarez now switches back to the inside, but it's the outside for turn number 2. He runs out of road there. He's not forced wide. He just runs out of tarmac. And now Hilber and Rybachenkov are all going to try and get involved in this. But as we can see there, Cordon immediately pulls over to the inside, and well, it's going to be 2 by 2 here. Is it going to be 3 wide? Yes, it is. Under braking they go, and in the end, it's all the way around the outside. He goes to the double, does Oscar Alvarez, but he goes a bit too deep. And here comes Yannick Hilber. He is going to pick up the toe here, and as they make that hill, Rybachenkov now gets involved as well. They're constantly fighting. It's almost as if all 4 cars are on a yo-yo right now, being pulled back to a centre mass right in between them. But Thomas Cordon is holding on like a hero right now, as you can see. see that Alvarez and Rybachenkov both trying to outdive each other to the inside of Hilbert, but they don't beat in there to the apex of turn number 8. But my goodness, what brilliant racing between them, and that has brought Adrian Korenzowski into this battle. So we're going to have a 5-way fight very shortly for 17th place, and well, this may be all the way down towards the back end of this group of drivers on the grid today, but I can tell you one thing, that for these guys right now, this will feel like the equivalent of a race win at the end of it, and they're loving it out there as Hilbert's looking up the inside of the Jinsdale corner. That's not going to work, but what is not working as well is Nikolai Milder's not able to break away as I head into turn number 1, because Cioletti's right behind him. Then you have the fight for 3rd, all the way through to 14th place right now. This is a long line of cars that has been brought back together, all because of Cioletti finding his way past Berntsen, Olsen doing the same. But whereas Melder and Cioletti have been able to break away, Jakob Olsen has now figured out the fact he hasn't actually got the pace to break away here, and he'll be hoping that the top two fight each other a bit more. But if you were Nikolai Melder and also Sandro Cioletti, I think you'd both be mutually thinking the same thing at the same time. It's not worth us fighting. We don't need another, what is 12 cars getting involved in the lead battle when they are 1.6 seconds clear, and at this rate they might just be able to gradually creep away. But meanwhile, coming back to that fight for 17th place, and right now Thomas Cordone still defending hard on the inside, but takes way too much apex curve at turn number 4. The car bouncing around there like a bouncy castle as they make the way out of the corner, and here comes Yannick Hilbert around one side, but it's getting very scrappy as they head up the hill. There's more contact between us, going to send Cordone to the grass. Where does Yannick Hilbert go in all this? He goes sliding sideways, Alvarez goes around the outside of him. My good lord, they all just about managed to avoid being in one big pile, and Ivan Rybachenkov comes out of it all in the Light McQueen machine right now, saying to himself, "Kachow, I've just done something very impressive," because wow, my goodness, he's managed to avoid all that, and he's gained all the places as a result of it. Well, he's the last man standing in that fight for now, but understandably, Korenzowski's going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, can I get involved as well? Well, we'll see, because Cordone and Alvarez are right on the back of it. Yannick Hilbert is a bit further back, but my goodness there, that was absolutely ferocious. Now, back to the front. And a little bit of a breathing moment. Well, not going to get much of a breather there as Cioletti looks up the inside. And, well, my good lord, Nikolai Melder right now, he did not fall for it there. And our second place runner, as we ride on board the dashboard here of your number 3, he is really now starting to get hungry for this. And as we've got to the halfway point, we're now to the second half of the race, I think the idea is here that Sandro Cioletti feels as though he's got the advantage. He's got the pace. He's obviously got the slipstream, so that's going to give him a bit of an overspeed on the straights. But he thinks he can lead this race, and he can probably lead it and run away with it. That's why he's driving the way he is, and he's now starting to threaten. Obviously, all these drivers, they know their craft very well. That's why they're your top split drivers. And that's why they've made it into the strength of field race. They've got the experience, they've got the knowledge, they've got the idea. Sometimes you want to go for feints. You sometimes want to do these little jukes to the inside. Sometimes you want to make the guy in front think you're going for a lunge, only for you to not be close enough to make the lunge. But in return, Nikolai Melde will have all the knowledge as well to know when it's time to defend versus when it's a fake out. And that's what makes it so interesting. It becomes a game of minds as well as it is cars out on the circuit when they're running around an average lap speed of the best part of 100 miles an hour or so. And right now for Sandro Cioletti, it is definitely a challenge whereby he's just got to outthink Melder and then find a way past. But as they come towards the end of this lap, no change. 1.4 seconds is the gap to your third place runner. And well, he heads on through right now. It's definitely building up here. It is getting tighter and tighter between our leaders. And at any moment, should they fight too hard, we could suddenly see the whole field come back together here. Now, Cioletti looks up the inside this time. He goes all in for the brakes. Melder sees it coming, leaves the door wide open here. But he defends now down to turn number 2. They both slide a little loose there. Practically rubbing paint as they come through turn 2, but give each other space through the retro Poster turn. Well, of course, that'll be the Coverdale Soul. Now onto the straight they come, and as they make their way down towards turn number 4, you can see there the change. It's cost them 2 attempts, but they still haven't let the rest of the field get close enough yet. Oscar Berntsen takes a peek out the inside of Olsen, and I think it's politely trying to say to him, can you get a move on? Because they're fighting up in front. We need to be there as well. But Sandro Cioletti now is your leader of this race. The Italian has made his way from a third place start into lead. His door number 3 shines high at the front. He's got the number 1 behind him. Meanwhile, we have got a growing group here in the form of Amel Kezanovic ahead of Joel McQuad and Humble and Nordstrom, where Vestman also get involved, but you can see how they're all constantly closer and closer here. This is getting to the point of uncomfortable when they're all this close. But why are we talking about that? Well, it's a sign here that Kekanovic right now may not be feeling as comfortable at the head of this group, and he might be starting to feel a bit of worry as that's a look around the outside there from McQuad. It's never going to work coming down for Bagulo corner on that angle. And that's the one thing that Kikanovic is able to do right now. He just simply acts as a bit of a rolling roadblock. But the problem is with this long line of cars that he has behind him, well, somebody's going to get impatient shortly. And in particular, I can imagine it'll be Marquardt in particular who'll be looking at this and thinking, right, you are now costing us time. I've got to pass you. We're coming through turn number 15 through Subida de boxes and heading in towards lap number 11. Kikanovic goes the fence on the inside. Here comes the move then, looking around the outside is Marquardt. Can he get it done? Not quite, but he does break nice and early, so he's going to go for the switchback, and Kikanovic sees it coming, forces him to take the inside line now, very condensed line, coming through turn number 2. They're too wide on the exit, going for the Curva del Sol. Now it's going to be Jack Humble who gets a little bit of a look on the inside here. Has he got the overspeed? You can see everyone's investing in Humble if they're coming up behind him. They make the wound down, and that's going to be Kikanovic on the inside defending as Humble tries to come through with him. It's going to be a deep run there from Marquardt. He's going to lose 1. He's going to lose 2. Is he going to lose 3 places at this point? I think he is. Or is he? No, not quite, as they make the way up the hill. He's only going to lose the 1 initially, and then the 2nd as they come into turn number 6, because that will be Nordstrom there fighting, but Nordstrom can't quite get it done. And in fact, Tom Nordstrom falls back behind with Nicholas Westman and Justin Hodge queuing up behind. But they are cost each other time here. They cost each other time from the top 5. Johnny Sundell has run away from this group now as a result. But as they make the way out towards turn number 10, well, the fighting is absolutely brilliant between them all. A little look up the inside there. And from Marquardt on Humble, but that's not going to work. And that was all about trying to get into the head of his rival again, as Emil Kikanovic, meanwhile, holds on to 6th place. He's doing an incredible job here of holding on as Kikanovic. If he can keep this up, this is going to be one of the best defensive drives of the season so far in these strength of field races. We've got a long way to go, of course, but we're already taking candidates for several items here. There's no official award or anything like that, but indeed there have been some brilliant stories so far, and there's even more to come. But on to the next lap they go, and as our leaders make their way past me down the start for this straight, we then look at this group of what is 6th all the way through to 12th. Aaron Jones now closing up, but switch outside. Humble immediately darts out there, wants all the width coming into turn number 1, comes down hard on the apex curve there, and now as he rides on the back of Kivanovic, it's all about the slipstream. It's all about nailing that full throttle application. He wants this place. He feels that he's got the momentum. Kikanovic immediately ducks to the inside there, heading down the retro poster. He knows what Humble's planning. Humble's now going to look around the outside. Can he make it happen? Goes hard onto the brakes. He's going to try and sweep it all the way around the outside. It's not enough. It's an off-camber corner, and he finds out the hard way that when you're on the outside there, you've got to back off unless you want to take a trip to the slowdown zone. So in the end, he has to back off, but that's going to bring now Marquardt close behind them, Nordstrom as well. And, well, no change at the moment. There's a tiny tap to the rear there of Humble's car for Marquardt as they come through turn 7. They really are running bumper to bumper. For about Aaron Jones here on the back of this, and right now, well, can he find a way to get involved even more? He's still in a very Christmassy themed car, although I think that's just the colours there. To be fair, my eyesight's very poor at that distance. But I can tell you one thing right now, he's looking for a late present here if he's got a Christmas themed livery on the car. And, well, he makes his way through turn number 10. Jones, well, he can confirm it's not a Christmas tree on the car there. That was my eyes deceiving me, but right now he's on the attack either way. But we're on his way on down. Lucas Tipak is 1.5 seconds behind. You can see in the rear view picture with Timmy Grossman at the back of this group. He's had a very silent race. He'd like to get involved and have a little bit of noise added to his race if he can. But onwards they come. And towards the start for this straight, we have got another 4 laps to go. And in terms of your leaders, your top 3 right now are Cialetti, followed by Melder and Olsen. They are still together, as close as they were when we left them 4 laps ago. There's been no change. Oscar Bernson, meanwhile, is a little bit further behind. As meanwhile, the battle continues outside the top 5 in the fight for what is 7th place. Jack Humble having to go defensive there versus Marquardt, and John Marquardt right now, I think, has seen what Humble's tried to do and recognised that it hasn't worked for Humble. So now he wants a piece of humble pie, but it's not going to quite work out as they head down the Restoposta straight, and instead he's going to have to wait his turn. Aaron Jones was looking threateningly close there, coming into turn number 4 versus Hodge, but I don't think he's got the overspeed initially, but that's going to be a very good run up the hill now from Aaron Jones as he heads to the outside immediately. I think this is going to be a switch back to the inside. No, Jones decides to play it safe there, and, well, I wonder if he's losing time behind Hodge slightly, and it's not to say Justin Hodge is a slouch by any means, but I think Jones right now, he's in the zone a little bit here, and I think he has played the game of preserving the car a little bit more compared to everybody in front. Remember, this is a 25-minute or so race based on lap times. However, the key point being around here is the fact that these Porsche Cup cars, they've got tyres that can be pushed hard. You can really milk the tyre compound for its grip, but if you're going to do that, it normally lasts the best part of 15 to 20 minutes of racing. So in terms of a percentage of this race, you're looking about 75% of the race, you can max out the tyre. And therefore, if you try to do it the entire race, you are going to scratch off some of the life of the tyre, and naturally you will lose pace towards the end if you've been pushing since the start. So is anybody now going to fall off the proverbial tyre cliff or not? That's what we'll wait to see. As John Marquardt too wide now with Humble. It's going to be Marquardt on the right of your picture. Meanwhile, Humble on the left of your picture as they battle for 7th place into turn 1. And Marquardt is going to be up the inside there as Nordstrom wants to get involved, but he's told no. Aaron Jones trying to get up the inside there of Hodge. Hodge says no to him as well. And we're coming out of Curva del Sol right now. 3 more left on the clock, and it's not done for Aaron Jones. He gets a really good run off the corner. He gets very close early on. That means that he's got to do it under braking. He won't have the slipstream to work with. He's going to dart up the inside if he can. Doors open. Surely Jones has got to go for it. He is. There's all fight. It's all going off the road in front. And meanwhile, that was John Marquardt and Nordstrom going side by side for a brief moment. And Tom Nordstrom ahead of Humble and Vestman as Humble has fallen down in this group even further. And we can confirm that Justin Hodge has held off Aaron Jones in that battle, but up the hill they come. 2 wide there, Nicholas Vestman and Humble as they come through turn number 8 and down into 9. And Vestman in the end, there's a bit of contact between them. Let's go send Vestman round into Pinheiro corner. It's always a corner where 2 wide doesn't work, and Nicholas Vestman has learned that the hard way, sadly, with that contact there with his rival, and I think he'll be fuming about that one. And well, in the heat of the moment, both drivers went for it. Neither one wanted to back out, and Vestman in the end falls apart as a result of it. However, still, it was a great race up until then from him. And we look forward to seeing plenty more from him later on. But as he falls outside the top 10, it's now going to be where's Humble, Hodge and Jones fighting for 9th through to 11th place. But we've got to leave them for a moment because 2 laps to go and your top 3 are still as they were. But the fight for 4th right now, it is going to be a battle of teammates here with Johnny Sundell and Oscar Bernstein together. And well, Sundell has found his way ahead in recent laps. In fact, I think they swapped the places around and have been quite passive about it. But I wonder whether there might be a little bit of battle between the 2 teammates at the end of the race. We do know the Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Racing team. They do have a very friendly culture in amongst their drivers. They also encourage them to fight so long as they don't take each other off the road. And indeed, that's in line with the number 1 rule of motorsport, which is, we've had 2 rules of motorsport, I should say. Number 1 rule is beat your teammate. The number 2 rule is don't take your teammate out the race. And well, you never want to merge the 2 rules together where possible. As they make their way onwards. Meanwhile, Aaron Jones still fighting with Justin Hodge. They were like this on the previous lap, albeit Hodge managed to defend into turn number 6 on the inside, and Hodge is going to do that again on the inside. Comes with the apex there, and Jones had to back out. I think he was worried about contact there, was Aaron Jones, because Hodge did come off the apex quite aggressively. Not to be unfair, I do think that Justin Hodge did everything he could to take that inside line, and Jones had to be a little bit compliant there. Otherwise, I think the 2 would have traded a lot more pain. But as they come in towards turn number 10, that shows you them both driving on the limit, and that's what we love to see. But what we see here as we look back from our leader's car, well, the very colourful yellow and black machine of Sandro Chialetti as he heads up the hill. And right now, he's only got 1 more tour of the circuit to do in order to see this through. It's been an absolutely brilliant race so far. It's been our closest race of the season in terms of the number of cars that have been separated by less than 10 seconds. And Chialetti right now heads onto the white flag lap, trying to hold on 1 more time. But here comes Nikolai Melder looking around the outside. Melder goes to the switchback here, but Chialetti sees it coming and says, I'll just park it on apex, thank you very much. But now it's going to be the drag race round through the Curva del Sol. We ride on board with your 3rd place runner here of Jakob Olsen, the man who started in 4th place, picked his way through, and he's watching this eagerly. As you can see there, Chialetti and Melder both on the inside. Melder now looks the outside, hoping that he's compromised Chialetti's line. Meanwhile, Olsen gets a natural racing line here. Chialetti goes deep, he runs out wide. Here comes Melder, looking up the inside, and as they head up the hill, 2 wide, they roar their way in towards turn number 6 as they go side by side. Well, Chialetti right now defends hard, and as he does, it costs them both time. Also wants to try and give up. He wants to try and place his bets on the right horse here, and they make their way to the braking zone. Melder dives up the inside, and he's going to try and fight it all the way through in towards turn number 9, but Chialetti is right there. The Italian driver refuses to budge. He refuses to give an inch, and as they come into turn 10, he still holds on. Melder dives to the inside, but Chialetti sees it coming and just puts the car right in the way and says, if you do that, we're both out this race today. And as they come down the hill, it's absolutely firm but fair racing between these drivers. They're absolutely on the limit. Coming into Jinsao corner, Melder dives again. He goes all in on the brakes. They run pain. He's giving drag race up the hill. Melder absolutely goes for it now. Who is going to win it as they make the way around? Surely not. Surely Chialetti's going to be into the line of this race. Melder's absolutely timed this to perfection. Unless he's got any more speed in that car, they're both going to be pushing the car forward inside the cockpit. It's a drag race. Who's going to win it? They come up the rise. I think it's Chialetti. I think Chialetti's done it literally by the minorest of margins ahead of Nikolai Melder, with Jakob Olsen in 3rd place in the end, ahead of Johnny Sundell and Oscar Bernson will then have Emil Kekanovic in 6th place ahead of Joel Marquardt, with Tom Nordstrom in 8th ahead of Jack Humble and Justin Hodge. My good lord, ladies and gentlemen, as all the field comes roaring on through, and well, we've got a couple of drives still to finish this race, including Ivan Rybachenkov as he makes his way towards the line. I think we're going to need to take a look back at that finish. My god, that's the closest finish we have seen as Rybachenkov, Alvarez and Chauvet all come through. That's your top 19, and with it all 19 finishes of this race, ladies and gentlemen. But my goodness, what an end to the race. That was absolutely incredible. We need to take a look back at that, and here we go. So this was the lead battle all the way to the end in its full glory, and Nikolai Melder went for the move initially. Started from turn number 4 with Chialetti going deep on the left-hander, and at this point it was too wide practically every step of the way. Yeah, but Olsen, to be fair, he watched this from behind. He would have been in the position knowing that if anything went wrong between him, he could seize on it. He thought he had it here. A tiny tap there, noticeably as well. Olsen on the back of Melder, whose car already was weaving because he tried to look for the move on the inside, but that little tap just pushed him a slight bit forward there, intriguingly. Chialetti defended it, and I think through Pinahirio, Melder backed off there to get the car back under control, but also constantly was hounding him to try and say to him, no, you need to keep going for this because I don't want to be caught up by the guys behind. But then suddenly it became a two-way battle, and Melder at this point went all in under braking versus what Chialetti, and at this point Chialetti left the door open, and well, Melder said, well, if you're going to leave it that wide open, I'm going to take it. Even if it's just enough for my car, I will be there. And as they roared their way through, the blimp camera here really gives you an idea of how much speed they were carrying between the two of them and how close they were. And to the line, on that outside line, Chialetti just, unfortunately, as he's just slightly obscured there. Can we see the checkered flag line from an alternative camera angle? I think we might be able to, because they made the way through. This is the only other camera angle we do have available. But you'll see Chialetti on the outside line. He had a longer circumference to drive through. He picked up more speed. And in the end, by the tiniest of margins, he was ahead by a nose just at the finish line there. And Jakob Olsen almost managed to steal second place from Melder. But what a conclusion to this race, ladies and gentlemen. You can't make it up. That is true Porsche Cup racing in the CONSPIT series as we come back to your live circuit side pictures. Whew, I'm going to need a bit of a breather after that one. Well, thankfully, here are the race results subject to any steward's inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant 16-lap showdown here at Interlagos for the Week 4 Strength for Field race in the 2026 Season 1 iRacing Official Porsche Cup by CONSPIT, it was Sandro Chialetti who finished off as your winner by the tightest margin we have seen so far in the history of the Strength for Field broadcast for the Porsche Cup Series by 21 thousandths over Nikolai Melder for RAA Simsport. I swear it was closer than that, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll believe the timing lines. Jakob Olsen in the end in third, and what a drive from the Arashi Racing Team driver to make his way into that position, but he couldn't quite find a way into the top two right at the end. Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing, finished 4th and 5th in the form of Johnny Sundell and Oscar Bernson, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat there, who says his tyres died towards the end of the race, and that's unfortunate. But Oscar, great to see you in the top 5 and giving it your all as always, good sir. And behind the two Swedes, it was the Austrian driver of Emil Kekanovic. Then we saw Joel Marquardt finish in 7th place. The German driver really enjoying a lot of battling with Kekanovic, and also with Tom Nordstrom, who finished in 8th for Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing, and also the two privateers of Jack Humble and Justin Hodge. Speaking of them, Jack Humble, as the race went on, his tyres started to go away and he started to fall away, but he held on just enough to force Hodge to take 10th. But Hodge enjoyed a great battle with Aaron Jones, who finished 11th, with Lucas Tepak in 12th place behind, and it was his fellow countryman from Germany of Timothy Grossman who finished 13th in a bit of a lonely race. Nicholas Vestman finished in 14th with a late instant costing him through Pinahirio corner, and then Simon Bamber finished 15th for Effect Simulations, and after a good start it didn't quite go far enough forward. Igor Genzel finished in 16th for Ring Fiat Sim Racing, ahead of Ivan Rybachenkov, who enjoyed some fantastic battling early on, it must be said, and then Oscar Alvarez finished in 18th ahead of Jeroen Chauvet, who rounded off your lead lap finishers in 19th. Adrian Korendowski finished in 20th, 3 laps down, but as classified. And we also did see retirement, sadly, for Yannick Hilber, also Thomas Cordon, Jan-Marcel Dietrich, and Harrison Scott, and unfortunately a non-start for Philip Grace. So with that, 25 starters, ladies and gentlemen, and the grand total of 20 finishers, of which 19 on the lead lap. And that brings our race into a close. But a huge congratulations to our top 3 of Sandro Chialetti, who takes his first Strength for Field race win of the season, ahead of Nikolai Melder and Jakob Olsen. And with that, just before we get ready to wrap up, let's tell you a little bit about our title sponsor for this series, and that is none other than CONSPIT. If you are looking to take your sim racing to the next level, then why not consider CONSPIT? As the pro driver's choice of sim racing hardware, CONSPIT offers one of the most comprehensive lines of hardware products to sim racers around the world. Whether you're in the market for wheelbases, steering wheels, pedals, peripherals, or rigs, CONSPIT's extensive experience in the motorsport industry means every one of their products is fine-tuned for success at the highest level. But do not just take our word for it. We're brand ambassadors including 2022 Grand Prix Macau GT Cup champion Luo Kaliu, 2022 Porsche Carrera Cup Asia champion Liu Ye, 2022 Chinese Touring Car Championship champion Rodolfo Avila, and 2023 GT World Challenge Asia GT3 AM Cup champions Climax Racing. You shall be in pole position for victory when you invest in CONSPIT's hardware. If you'd like to know more, be sure to head to conspit.com today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we pack up our bags from Brazil and get ready to head to France, because in week 5, well, it's not going to be a 24-hour endurance race per se, but it is the home of 24-hour endurance racing. We will see our drivers take on the circuit says 24-hour Du Mans, or more commonly just referred to as Le Mans. And there, it'll be about the straights and the sweeping bends and being able to keep your cool no matter how low the downforce goes. Who will continue the story there and come away your winner in France? We'll come tune in a week's time on Saturday the 17th of January 2026, as we'll find out then. But until then, this has been the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. I've been your host and commentator Paul Walsh. This has been a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.